We'll make a start inshallah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. Last week we started the book of Salah, so we finished talking about the things of purification like Wudhu and Ghusl and impurities, and we began talking about the book of Salah. And we started with the times of the prayers, but we only got 2 or 3 lines into the actual chapter. So I'll just repeat the same things again, inshallah, from the start of Kitab al-Salah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. قال المصنف رحمه الله أول وقت الفجر إذا طلع الفجر الثاني وهو البياض المعترض في الأفق. The author said, Al-Imam al-Quduri rahimahullah ta'ala said that the start of the Fajr time is when the second Fajr comes into the sky. And he said this is the whiteness that you will see stretched across the width of the sky. So if we said last week that the first Fajr is the fake Fajr, al-Fajr al-Kadhib or al-Subh al-Kadhib, which is when the light first appears in the sky, is pitch black, and then a light first appears in the sky, and that's the white line that goes vertically upwards. That will happen first, that's not Fajr time. Then after a short period of time, a white line will appear across the sky, in the width of the sky. That's what we call Al-Fajr al-Sadiq or Al-Subh al-Sadiq or Al-Fajr al-Thani or Al-Subh al-Thani. The second Fajr, meaning that's the true Fajr, the true one. So when the white line appears across the width of the sky in the horizon, that's the beginning of Fajr time. وَآخِرُ وَقْتِهَا مَا لَمْ تَطْلُعِ الشَّمْسُ. And the last time for Fajr is as long as the sun has not risen. So if you look at the horizon and you can't see the sun at all, then you can still pray Fajr in that time. As soon as the sun starts to appear, meaning sunrise has started, in the Hanafi madhab, the Fajr becomes invalid. So if you're praying Fajr, say, and you're on the second rak'ah, and you've not finished Fajr yet, but then you see the sun, meaning the sun has started, the sunrise has started, the entire Salah becomes invalid. So your prayer is invalid, you will need to do it again. Everyone come closer, you come closer, don't stay so far away, inshallah. So that's important to remember. So sometimes we look at the timetable and the sunrise is 1 minute away and we're late for Fajr that day and we've woken up late and we're trying to pray it. We need to finish our prayer before sunrise starts. Because if sunrise starts, the entire Salah becomes invalid in the Hanafi madhab. The other madhabs disagree. But in the Hanafi madhab, that's the case. So we need to finish the Fajr Salah before the sunrise time kicks in. وَأَوَّلُ وَقْتِ الظُّهْرِ إِذَا زَالَتِ الشَّمْسُ. And the start of the Dhuhr Salah is when the sun starts to descend, starts to decline. So the time we know Zawal time is the time when the sun is right at the top. So we know the sun will rise and it will go in like an arch form and it will set in the evening. When the sun is at the highest point, that's Zawal time. That's the time that some people started to worship the sun. Because they used to worship the sun when the sun is at its highest, they wanted to worship the sun. So the Muslims were forbade from praying at that time. So it's makruh tahriman, it's sinful to pray at the time of Zawal. But as soon as the sun starts to go a little bit down again, that's the start of Dhuhr time. That's what the author is saying. So that's why Zawal is very short. It's 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes. And then as soon as it starts to come down, Dhuhr time starts. وآخر وقتها عند أبي حنيفة رحمه الله إذا صار ظل كل شيء مثليه سوى فيء الزوال. And the end time of Dhuhr is an issue of dispute in the Hanafi madhab, in the Hanafi school, and across the 3 madhabs. Across all 4 madhabs, there is a dispute between the Hanafi madhab and the other madhahib. The Hanafi madhab and the position of Abu Hanifa rahimahullah is that when an object gets the shadow of an object with the sun, the shadow of an object is double the size of that object, the height of that object. So the height, and then you have the shadow is double the size of the height, except for the small amount of shadow which is there at Zawal time. Then Asr time has started, according to Al-Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, when the height is half the length of the shadow from the sun. According to Al-Imam Muhammad and Abu Yusuf, as he will say here, وَقَالَ Abu Yusuf وَمُحَمَّدٌ رَحِمَهُمُ اللَّهِ إِذَا صَارَ ظِلُّ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ مِثْلَهُ إِذَا صَارَ ظِلُّ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ مِثْلَهُ, that when the height of something is the same as the length of the shadow, they will say the Asr time has started and the Dhuhr time has finished. And that's what the three madhabs say also. The Maliki madhab, the Shafi'i madhab, the Hanbali madhab. So that's why sometimes you'll see on timetables that there'll be a big difference in Asr time starting. Or you might even have on some timetables the Shafi'i time and the Hanafi time. The Shafi'i time is in fact the time of the three madhabs and Abu Yusuf and Imam Muhammad, and the Hanafi time is the fatwa given in the Hanafi madhab based on the statement of Al-Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. So something we need to know is that when we look at Hanafi books, often they won't just say one thing. They will say Abu Hanifa's position was this, and Abu Yusuf's position was this, and Muhammad's position was this, and Zufar's position was this, meaning it's Abu Hanifa and his students are also mentioned. So the Hanafi madhab is not built on one Imam's statement only. Rather, it's many scholars of such a high caliber. It's said that in the majalis of Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, when they're discussing fiqh, he would have almost 40, if not more than 40, of the highest level people who are knowledgeable in fiqh, of all the different rulings that there are in fiqh. Not just like salah that we have, but inheritance and financial things and everything. They're knowledgeable in all those things. And so they would discuss them and they would come to a conclusion, and that would be the position of Abu Hanifa. If they couldn't come to a conclusion and they disagreed with each other, then Abu Hanifa would say one thing and the other opinions would be recorded of the major students, because they were taken into consideration. So in fact the Hanafi madhab is very strong because it's not just based on one Imam, it's based on many Imams, and the top few Imams, different opinions are recorded. So here's one instance. This is the first instance that we have in the book where the Imams differ. Abu Hanifa says it's later in the day when Dhuhr finishes and Asr starts, and that's the time that we use in our timetables, and the majority of masjids in the UK will use that time, when the object, its height is half the height of the shadow, or the shadow is double the size of the height of the object. But Abu Yusuf, Muhammad and the other three madhab said, no, when the height is exactly the same as the shadow length, that's when the Asr time starts and the Dhuhr time ends. وَأَوَّلُ وَقْتِ الْعَصْرِ إِذَا خَرَجَ وَقْتُ الظُّهْرِ عَلَى الْقَوْلَيْنِ. And he's saying that whenever the Dhuhr time ends, whatever position you take about the Dhuhr time ending, that's when the Asr time will start. وآخر وقتها ما لم تغرب الشمس. And the end time of Asr, the last time you can pray Asr, is for as long as the sun has not set yet. When the sun is not set yet, then you can still pray Asr of that particular day. وأول وقت المغرب إذا غربت الشمس. And the start time of Maghrib is when the sun has set. So you can no longer see the sun on the horizon anymore. That's the start of Maghrib time. And that's what the word Maghrib means. The word Maghrib means the time of setting of the sun. وآخر وقتها ما لم يغب الشفق. And the end time of Maghrib is for as long as the light in the horizon, the light has not gone. Now, the two shafaq, the two lights in the horizon, this is another difference of opinion between the Hanafi ulama and the other madhabs. And within the Hanafi school also, just like we had a difference of opinion with when does Asr start, when does Dhuhr end, we have a difference of opinion when does Maghrib end, when does Isha begin. So that's why sometimes you'll find a difference between the Isha times in different masajid, depending which opinion they follow. So he says, وَهُوَ الْبَيَاضُ الَّذِي يُرَى فِي الْأُفُقِ بَعْدَ الْحُمْرَةِ عِنْدَ أَبِي حَنِيفَةَ. For Abu Hanifa, the Isha time is a little bit later. So he says when the white disappears from the sky, the white light which is in the sky after Maghrib, when that disappears, meaning when the sky becomes pitch black, that's when Isha time begins and Maghrib time finishes. وقال أبو يوسف ومحمد هو الحمرة. And Abu Yusuf and Imam Muhammad, both of these Imams, the students of Abu Hanifa, they said no, it's the red light in the sky. When the red light in the sky disappears, that's when Maghrib time finishes and Isha time enters. And that's also the statement of the other three Imams of the three madhabs. And this tends to be, even though this is not the fatwa in the Hanafi school is not given on this particular ruling, this tends to be what most masajid follow, because otherwise Isha will become very late. So they follow the initial time when the redness disappears from the sky, especially in the summer months. That's when they tend to disappear. And just for everyone's information as well, that sometimes we know that, okay, everyone will be following one of these two positions, but people will disagree about when does the redness disappear from the sky, when does the whiteness disappear from the sky, when you're doing calculations for the future. So some people will say, right, when the sun is below the horizon by 12 degrees, the redness disappears. Some will say when it's below the horizon by 15 degrees, the redness disappears. Some say at 15 degrees, the whiteness disappears. Some say at 18 degrees, the whiteness disappears. So sometimes you'll hear this, the issue of degrees, about Fajr time, Isha time, degrees, 18 degrees, 15 degrees, 12 degrees. It's talking about what the position of those group of scholars is, that the sun needs to be below the horizon. How many degrees of a 360-degree circle, how many degrees below the horizon the sun needs to be for the redness to disappear or for the whiteness to disappear. So many ulama will have different positions about this. The one that they follow in Mecca and Medina, I believe, is the 18-degree rule. So when the 18 degrees, the sun is below the horizon by 18 degrees, they will either start Fajr or they will start Isha, depending which time of the prayer it is. But that's just for information. That's why even when a school will follow one opinion, some masajid will follow the same opinion, but they will disagree when does the redness disappear, when does the whiteness disappear. That's why you'll have a bit of difference, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes difference between Isha times and Fajr times in different masajid. وَأَوَّلُ وَقْتِ الْعِشَاءِ إِذَا غَابَ الشَّفَقِ. And he's saying that Isha time begins when whichever, either the redness or the whiteness, whichever position you take, when that disappears from the sky, that's when Isha time begins. وآخر وقتها ما لم يطلع الفجر الثاني. And the end time for Isha, the last time you can pray Isha, is when the second Fajr has not come yet. So remember we started by saying there's one Fajr which is the straight line in the sky, that's the Fajr al-Kadhib, and the Fajr al-Sadiq is the line across the sky, the second one. So as long as the line across the sky, the whiteness across the sky, the width of the sky has not come, your Isha is still on time technically, it's still valid technically, in the Hanafi madhab. وَأَوَّلُ وَقْتِ الْوِتْرِ بَعْدَ الْعِشَاءِ. And the start time for Salatul Witr, we know Salatul Witr, we pray 3 rak'ahs after Isha. He says that any time after Isha, you can pray Witr. So you can pray Witr at the start of Isha time, as long as you've prayed your 4 rak'ahs of Isha, you can pray Witr then. Or you can pray it right before Fajr time. Anywhere in between, as long as you've prayed your 4 fard of Isha, you can start praying Witr if you want to. وآخر وقتها ما لم يطلع الفجر. And the end time for Witr is as long as Fajr has not come in. Fajr has not come in yet. An important point to mention here is that, you know, on the prayer times, we'll have, especially in Ramadan, we'll have the Sahri time and the Fajr time. The Fajr time is the one that you need to worry about here, because it's the Fajr time kicking in where your Isha is no longer valid, or it's no longer on time, and your Witr is no longer on time as soon as Fajr kicks in. The reason we have a Sahri time is just for precaution, because in the Hanafi school, if you eat accidentally after the Fajr time is finished, your fasting is still invalid, as long as you knew you were fasting. If you forget that you're fasting, that's a different issue. But if you know you're fasting but you forget the time, then your fast is become invalid. So we say, okay, 5 minutes, 10 minutes before Fajr time, just to be safe, just for safety. But in reality, it's the Fajr time we need to worry about. And people need to be aware of that, because sometimes people are praying Fajr when they see the Sahri time, because they don't know what Sahri is and Fajr time is. So they see the Sahri time and they'll start praying Fajr at that time. You can't pray Fajr at that time. In reality, the Sahri time is not a Shari'i time. It's not even a time in Islamic law. That's just put there today for people to just stop their fast a little bit early, just for safety. But in reality, it's Fajr time we always have to deal with these rulings. Okay, so those are the times of the prayer. Those are the times of the prayer. Now the Imam gets into some of the things which are beneficial to do. وَيُسْتَحَبُّ الْإِسْفَارُ فِي الْفَجْرِ. It's better to wait for the sky to become a little bit yellow for the time of Fajr. Again, this is in contrast to some of the other madhabs. They say, no, it's best to pray straight away. for us, it's better to wait for the sky to change color a bit, the brightness of the sky to come a little bit, delay Fajr a little bit. That's better for in the Hanafi madhab. وَالْإِبْرَادُ بِالظُّهْرِ فِي الصَّيْفِ وَتَقْدِيمُهَا فِي الشِّتَاءِ. In the summer months, to pray Isha at a cooler time, because it's so hot, especially in Arabia or elsewhere in the Muslim world, it's so hot, it's better to delay Dhuhr a little bit, so that it's not at the heat, the extreme heat of the day is not affecting the minds of the people in their prayer. وَتَقْدِيمُهَا فِي الشِّتَاءِ, and to pray Dhuhr early in the winter months. And in reality, this would be better throughout the year, except for the heat of the sun. For the heat of the sun, then it's better to make it cooler, but generally it's better to pray Dhuhr earlier. وَتَأْخِيرُ الْعَصْرِ مَا لَمْ تَتَغَيَّرِ الشَّمْسُ, and to delay Asr prayer for as long as the sun has not started to change. Meaning there's a certain time before Maghrib comes in, as you delay Asr, the sky starts to turn yellow, the sun starts to go redder. At that time it's become makruh to pray Asr, to delay Asr to that time. You shouldn't have delayed Asr to that time. But to delay Asr away from the start time, not to pray it straight away, but to wait a little bit of time, as long as the sky has not changed colour, the sun has not changed colour, then to delay it a little bit is better in the Hanafi madhab. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Forgotten praying Maghrib. MashaAllah, when I came into it, remind myself, and I didn't pray now. Is that
you need to, so you haven't prayed Maghrib, you want to pray now?
I didn't pray now.
Yeah, you pray now. You pray now.
So when you remember something, you missed the salah.
Yes.
Remember that time. You pray.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you have missed a salah, the question is, if you've missed your salah, you pray it as soon as you remember it, or as soon as you wake up, you pray the salah. As long as, in the Hanafi madhab anyway, as long as you're not in a makruh time to pray the salah. So at zawal, you still shouldn't be praying your fard salah. When the sky has changed colour at Asr time, like we're talking about now, you're not allowed to pray any qada salah, any salah that you've missed on that day even. But now you can pray your salah, no problem yet, at this time. But in the makruh time, you can't pray the qada salah that you've missed. Okay. With some exceptions, like after Fajr, after Maghrib, but we'll talk about that when we get to that point, inshallah. Okay. وَتَعْجِيلُ الْمَغْرِبِ, praying Maghrib early. That's also something desirable. So that's why you'll notice on the prayer times, you have beginning times for every prayer except for Maghrib, because Jama'ah time for Maghrib is the same as the start time, because we try to pray as quick as possible. وَتَأْخِيرُ الْعِشَاءِ إِلَى مَا قَبْلَ ثُلُثِ اللَّيْلِ, and to delay Isha as long as a third of the night has not passed. This is important, because people tend to delay the salah a long time, when they're praying at home, they'll delay till 1 a.m., 2 a.m. It's best to delay the Salatul Isha, but not after a third of the night. Okay. Now this is generally the rule for Jama'ah, it's not generally the rule for individual prayer, but in the other madhabs, it becomes the rule for the individual prayer as well, that you should pray the Isha either before half the night is done or before a third of the night, depending which Imam you're reading. For the Jama'ah in the Hanafi madhab, it's makruh, undesirable, that you delay the Isha Jama'ah after a third of the night has come in. But even when you're praying by yourself, you should try ideally to pray before a third of the night. That would be better. ويستحب في الوتر لمن يألف صلاة الليل أن يؤخر الوتر إلى آخر الليل فإن لم يثق بالانتباه أو ترى قبل النوم. For the person who is used to praying tahajjud, then he should pray witr at the end of the night after his tahajjud. But for the person who is not well acquainted with tahajjud, meaning he's not sure that he's going to get up for tahajjud every day, then it's better that he does witr before he goes to sleep, because that way he's definitely prayed it. So if a person can pray Qiyamul Layl, or he knows he's going to pray Qiyamul Layl or tahajjud, your witr should be done as late as possible after that. Should be the last thing. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, اجعلوا آخر صلاتكم بالليل وترا. Make the last prayer that you pray at night an odd number, meaning the witr at the end. But Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu narrates that the Prophet ﷺ advised him to pray witr before sleeping. Because Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu was studying hadith and he was involved in learning and things, so he would stay awake late, and so if he goes to sleep, he might not wake up for tahajjud, one might not wake up for witr. So pray it before you go to sleep. So both are permissible, but it depends on your personal habit. If you're used to getting up to pray, then you pray it later. If you're sure you're going to get up to pray, then you pray it before you go to sleep. Because you don't want to miss witr. In the Hanafi madhab, it's wajib. It's compulsory to pray witr. And you'll be sinful if you don't pray it. Okay. So that's the prayer times that's been mentioned. Now we'll move on to Babul Adhan, the chapter of the Adhan, how to do Adhan for the Salah. Al-Adhanu sunnatun mu'akkada. The Adhan is sunnah mu'akkada, meaning it's an emphasized sunnah. Meaning every fard prayer that a person prays, Adhan should be done. Just like you pray your sunnah before and after your Salah, you should be doing Adhan like that. So even if you pray in your home, you should be doing Adhan and Iqamah for your Salah. It's part of the sunnah for the Salah. This Salawat al-Khams. وَالْجُمُعَةِ دُونَ مَا سِوَاهَا. But it's only compulsory, it's only sunnah for the 5 prayers and Jumu'ah. The 5 prayers and Jumu'ah. So not for Eid Salah, not for Janazah Salah, for example, or Taraweeh even. وَصِفَةُ الْأَذَانِ أَن يَقُولَ اللَّهُ أَكْبَرُ اللَّهُ أَكْبَرُ إِلَى آخِرِهِ. The description of the Adhan is by saying Allahu Akbar until the end of the Adhan. وَلَا تَرْجِيعَ فِيهِ. There's no tarji' in the Adhan for the Hanafi madhab. What does tarji' mean? Tarji' means that a person says, it might sound strange to some people that they've not heard of this before, but a person will say, you know, when you say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, alayhi salatu wasalam, the muadhin sometimes will say it quietly to himself before he says it out loud to everyone else. So this is the position of some of the madhahib. It's mentioned within some of the ahadith as well. But the Hanafi madhab says, no, that's not something that should be done in the adhan. Rather, a person should just do the adhan out loud. They shouldn't do it quietly beforehand. So they'll literally say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. And then they'll say it out loud to everyone else. So that's not the position of the Hanafi madhab. وَيَزِيدُ فِي آذَانِ الْفَجْرِ بَعْدَ الْفَلَاحِ الصَّلَاةُ خَيْرٌ مِنَ النَّوْمِ مَرَّتَيْنِ. After Hayya ala al-Falah, in the Fajr adhan, he will say, As-salatu khayrun min an-nawm, as people might be aware. In the Fajr adhan, you say, As-salatu khayrun min an-nawm twice, after you say, Hayya ala al-Falah twice. والإقامة مثل الأذان إلا أنه يزيد فيها بعد حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة مرتين. That the Iqamah is exactly the same as the Adhan in the Hanafi school. Because in the other madhahib, you will find that they will say everything once in the Iqamah. So if you go to Mecca or Medina, you'll hear they say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, Hayya ala salah, Hayya ala al-falah. They will say everything once rather than they'll say everything twice. But in the Hanafi school, he's saying that the Iqamah is exactly the same as the Adhan. And this is also mentioned in hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would teach people to pray, to do the Iqamah in that way. And it's also mentioned in the dream. There was a dream scene about the Adhan and the Iqamah, and in the dream it was mentioned that the Iqamah was exactly the same as the Adhan. So in Bukhari and Muslim, it's also mentioned that the Iqamah was done with a singular phrasing. So authentic hadith exist for both positions. So no one should say, right, one is wrong, one is okay. Rather, both of them are valid positions between the 4 madhabs. But the Hanafi madhab will say, no, you say everything twice. Because that was the position of some of the Sahaba as well, radiyallahu anhum. Except that after Hayya ala al-Falah, in the Iqamah, he says, قَدْ قَامَتِ الصَّلَاةِ. He says, قَدْ قَامَتِ الصَّلَاةِ twice. So that's the only difference. وَيَتَرَسَّلُ فِي الْأَذَانِ وَيَحْضُرُ فِي الْإِقَامَةِ. And he should take his time with the adhan, meaning he shouldn't be rushing the adhan, but he should be hastening the Iqamah. The Iqamah should be done quicker without gaps. But the adhan should be done slowly with some gaps between the words. وَيَسْتَقْبِلُ بِهِمَا الْقِبْلَةِ. And he should face the Qibla when doing both. The Adhan and the Iqamah, he should be facing the Qibla when he does both. فَإِذَا بَلَغَ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ وَالْفَلَاحِ حَوَّلَ وَجْهَهُ يَمِينًا وَشِمَالًا وَيُؤَذِّنُ لِلْفَائِتَةِ وَيُقِيمُ. When the muadhin does the Adhan, he should face the Qibla. But when he gets to As-Salah and Al-Falah, he should turn his face to the right and turn his face to the left. The position in the Hanafi school is that, or the dominant position at least, is that when you say As-Salah, that particular word As-Salah, you turn your face to the right both times. And when you say Falah, you turn your face to the left both times. Although other things have been mentioned that you say right and left for each one. So as-salah, as-salah, al-falah, al-falah. That's also been mentioned. And that's also in the other madhabs as well, some of them. But the dominant position in the Hanafi school is every time you say hayya ala salah, for the word salah, you turn to the right. So some people make a mistake and they will say hayya ala salah. They'll turn to the right when they say hay, for example. Rather, you should turn to the right when you say as-salah. That's the more correct way. Hayya ala salah, hayya ala salah, hayya ala al-falah, like that. And he should do the adhan for the prayers that he's missed also. For the salahs that have been missed. So you missed Maghrib or you missed Isha and you're praying Qada. You should also do the adhan for that prayer and do the iqamah also. فَإِن فَاتَتْهُ صَلَوَاتٌ. But if he has missed multiple prayers, so he's not just making up one prayer, he's missed several prayers now. أَذَّنَ لِلْأُولَى وَأَقَامَ. He does the adhan and the iqamah for the first prayer that he's making up. وَكَانَ مُخَيَّرًا فِي الْبَاقِيَةِ. And then he has been given the choice with regards to the rest of the salahs that he has to make up. إِن شَاءَ أَذَّنَ وَأَقَامَ وَإِن شَاءَ اقْتَصَرَ عَلَى الْإِقَامَةِ. If he wants to, he can do the adhan and the iqamah for every prayer that he's missed. Or if he wants to, he can just do the iqamah. But notice, even then, he's doing the iqamah for every single fard prayer. So that should be done because it's sunnah. So it should be done even for the missed prayers. You missed several prayers. You should be doing iqamah for every single prayer in the Hanafi madhab. People aren't aware of this, unfortunately. وَيَنْبَغِي أَن يُؤَذِّنَ وَيُقِيمَ عَلَى طُهْرٍ. And it's better for him that he does the adhan and the iqamah when he's in a state of wudu. He should be doing it in a state of wudu. فَإِنْ أَذَّنَ عَلَى غَيْرِ وُضُوءٍ جَازٍ. If he does the adhan in a state that he's not in wudu, it's permissible. You're allowed to do the adhan if you don't have wudu. It's still permissible. وَيُكْرَهُ أَن يُقِيمَ عَلَى غَيْرِ وُضُوءٍ أَوْ يُؤَذِّنَ عَلَى جُنُوبٍ. But it's disliked, it's makruh. And now we need to think about the word makruh. What does the word makruh mean? Which we will cover inshallah if we have time. It is makruh if he does the adhan in a state when he needs ghusl, in a state of janaba, or he does the iqamah without being in wudu. Why is it disliked to do the iqamah without wudu? Because then if you're doing the iqamah and you haven't got wudu, you're going to miss the start of the salah. So really you should be going to do wudu and letting someone else do the iqamah, or you should be in a state of wudu so that you don't miss the start of the salah. Whereas the adhan, you'll have a bit of time to go do wudu and come back. That's why it's not makruh to do that. But you shouldn't do the adhan in a state of janaba because you need to be pure when you're mentioning the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ideally, it's better to, especially when you're pronouncing it and you'll probably be close to a masjid or in the masjid. وَلَا يُؤَذِّنُ لِصَلَاةٍ قَبْلَ دُخُولِ وَقْتِهَا. He's not allowed to do the adhan before the time of the prayer enters. So you can't do the adhan before the time enters on the timetable. So some people might be doing that, you can't do that. إِلَّا فِي آذَانِ الْفَجْرِ عِنْدَ أَبِي يُوسُف. Except for the adhan of Fajr, according to Al-Imam Yusuf rahimahullah. So he said, technically you could do the adhan of Fajr slightly before the time of Fajr comes in. قَبْلَ الصُّبْحِ. Even before the time of Fajr comes in. Okay, so that's the adhan. Now what does makruh mean? I'll mention something quickly from Ibn Abidin's Hashiyah rahimahullah, which is a more advanced book about what the actual definition of makruh might be. So, al-makruh tahriman min as-saghair. This is what he mentions. بأن كل مكروه تحريما من الصغائر. Every makruh tahrimi in the Hanafi madhab is a minor sin. So you will hear, because I think the other madhahib and the Salafi madhab or Salafi movement today is very prominent on YouTube and on social media, you will hear the idea that a makruh is something which is not sinful, but you will get reward in avoiding it. That's not the position of the Hanafi madhab. When you hear makruh in the Hanafi madhab, you need to understand what every imam, what every madhab meant when they said makruh, because they all mean different things. Imam al-Ghazali rahimahullah in the Shafi'i madhab, in his book of Usul al-Mustasfa, he says makruh can mean 4 things in our madhab. Sometimes Imam al-Shafi'i will mean 4 different things sometimes when he says the word makruh. So you need to know what the actual indication is. In the Hanafi madhab generally it means 2 things. Either it means that a thing should be left, and if you leave it, it's better and you will get reward. Or it means if a thing you do it, you will get sin for it. It's a minor sin. So makruh tahriman is a minor sin in the Hanafi school, meaning it is sinful. You can get punishment for it. That's what the position of the Hanafi madhab is. For the sake of time, we'll leave the rest of the explanation. But he also explains in the other volume, he explains that generally in the Hanafi school, if you say makruh, you mean tahriman. So if someone says makruh and they don't specify, generally they will be meaning it's sinful to do this thing. It's a minor sin. It's not a haram major sin, but it's a minor sin. So it shouldn't be done, and if you do it, you're sinful, you could face punishment. But sometimes it will be meant, there'll be an indication somewhere meaning that this makruh here, it doesn't mean sinful, it means better to leave it. You'll get reward for leaving it. So there's two, makruh tanzihan, which means it's better to leave it and you'll get reward for leaving it, and makruh tahriman, meaning it's haram and it will be a sin if you do it. It will be a minor sin if you do it. So here he's saying, here he was saying that, when we've mentioned makruh sometimes, it will mean that it is sinful to do this sort of thing. But that's important to come into now as we go through the book, inshallah. باب شروط الصلاة التي تتقدمها. These are now the preconditions of the salah. The preconditions of the salah that come before you actually entering the salah. يجب على المصلي أن يقدم الطهارة من الأحداث. It's compulsory for the person praying that he should remove any impurities والأجناس والأنجاس على ما قدمناه. Any impurities from himself, and he should be in a state of wudu. So he should remove the spiritual impurity, he should be in a state of wudu himself, and from his body, his clothing, the place he's praying, etc. He should remove all of the filth that we've mentioned previously. وَيَسْتُرُ عَوْرَتَهُ, and he should or she should cover her awrah. What's the awrah for a man? So the awrah in salah and out of salah is different sometimes. So we don't be confused that the awrah for the salah itself is one thing sometimes, and the awrah sometimes when scholars mention it is talking about when you're in front of another person, and it will change depending on who that person is. We're talking about the salah now. The awrah for the salah of the man, he'll mention it here actually, I'll just translate here. وَالْعَوْرَةُ مِنَ الرَّجُلِ مَا تَحْتَ السُّرَّةِ إِلَى الرُّكْبَةِ وَالرُّكْبَةُ مِنَ الْعَوْرَةِ. For the man, it's from the navel to the knee, and the knee is included in the awrah. Because for some of the other madhabs, the knee is not part of the awrah. They will say the navel to the knee, but they don't include the knee. When the Hanafi say it, we say the navel to the knee, and we include the knee. So the knee itself can't be exposed. وَبَدَنُ الْمَرْأَةِ الْحُرَّةِ كُلُّهُ عَوْرَةٌ إِلَّا وَجْهَهَا وَكَفَّيْهَا. And for a free woman, because the issue will differ if it's a slave woman, for a free woman, the entire body is awrah except for her hands and her face. That's what's mentioned here, her hands and her face. Some Hanafi scholars also extend it to the feet as well. So they will say if she prays with her feet without wearing socks or without her feet covered, it will be allowed, it will be valid. But some Hanafi scholars were a bit stricter on this, and the other madhabs were stricter on this as well. They said no, she should also have her feet covered. Here it's just mentioned the face and the hands be exposed, and that's the rest of the body is awrah. وَمَا كَانَ عَوْرَةً مِنَ الرَّجُلِ فَهُوَ عَوْرَةٌ مِنَ الْأَمَةِ. And for the slave woman, it's the same as the man's awrah. وَبَطْنُهَا وَظَهْرُهَا عَوْرَةٌ. But her stomach and her back is also awrah. وَمَا سِوَى ذَلِكَ مِنْ بَدَنِهَا فَلَيْسَ بِعَوْرَةٍ. Everything else apart from that on the body is not awrah. That's for the slave woman if she's a slave. But for the free woman, it's what we mentioned already. We'll do the other now, inshallah. Inshallah, we'll just do a few more minutes to finish this part of the book. So he says, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَجِدْ مَا يُزِيلُ بِهِ النَّجَاسَةِ صَلَّ مَعَهَا وَلَمْ يُعِدْ الصَّلَاةِ. If a person has filth on their clothing but they can't find water, for example, anything to remove the filth, he needs to pray even with the filth. So you don't miss your salah. You pray your salah. If you can't find anything to remove the filth, you still pray with the filth and you don't miss the salah. وَمَنْ لَمْ يَجِدْ ثَوْبًا صَلَّ عُرْيَانًا قَاعِدًا. That if a person hasn't got clothing to cover themselves, their awrah, then he should still pray, but he should sit down and pray. And he should just gesture when it comes to ruku' and sujood, because if he goes into ruku' and sujood properly, he will expose part of his awrah, which is not befitting. فَإِن صَلَّى قَائِمًا أَجْزَأَهُ وَالْأَوَّلُ أَفْضَلُ. It's still permissible for him to pray standing up, but it's better to sit down and pray, because you don't want to expose your awrah more than you need to. And he should intend the salah that he's going into when he does the takbirah. When he does his takbirah, when he starts the salah, Allahu Akbar, he should be intending the salah that he goes into. And he should face the qibla unless he's praying the prayer of fear, he's scared of someone that's about to attack him or something, then he will still pray. He doesn't miss the salah, but he's walking around praying or whatever he needs to do. In that case, he doesn't need to pray facing the qibla. And other times, when, for example, you're praying nafil salah and you're in a car, or you're praying nafil salah on a plane, etc., you don't need to face the qibla for that particular salah, as long as you're outside of the city that you're traveling in. Outside of the city rather, sorry. When he doesn't know where the qibla is, he should ask someone, where is the qibla? And if he does not have anyone to ask, or no one knows, then he should make a judgment himself, either by looking at the sun or trying to remember, where did I pray last time, trying to calculate in his head. As long as he's done some effort of calculation, the salah will be valid and the qibla will be valid. And if he knows that he's made a mistake afterwards, that the qibla that he went to, that he intended, was wrong afterwards, he doesn't need to repeat the salah, as long as he used some effort in attempting to calculate the direction of the salah. As long as he did that in the first place, he did some effort, whatever effort that is, even if he just tries to think, right, well, this way seems the right way. Even if he has done that, he finds out later it was the wrong direction, he doesn't need to repeat the salah. The intention is that you make the best effort at the time to face the right way. As long as you've made the best effort, you don't need to repeat the salah. And if he knows that he's made a mistake in his salah, then he will just change the way he's facing. So say he realizes a mistake while he started the prayer, all he has to do is change whichever direction he's praying in. That's all he has to do. And that's the end of that particular chapter on the conditions of the prayer, the prerequisites of the prayer. So we mentioned facing the qibla, we mentioned cleaning the clothes and making sure you're in a state of wudu, we mentioned the intention, etc. So all these things are part of and covering the awrah as well. All these things are part of the preconditions of the salah. Inshallah, we'll finish there. And if anyone has any questions, you can ask. Yeah, go on.
So what sort of obligation you have to?
Say this again?
Witr salah. So in the Isha you have 3
Witr salah, yeah?
witr salah.
What's the obligation?
Yeah.
So for the witr salah, the obligation is praying the witr salah 3 rak'ahs, and we'll cover that how to pray witr later on as well.
If you intentionally avoid this thing.
Yeah, if you intentionally avoid the witr salah in the Hanafi's madhab, you will be sinful. It will be sinful to do so. But the other madhabs they say no, it's sunnah, so you won't be sinful, but you still should do it. But our madhab says that it's sinful not to do it. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else has a question? You can ask me after the fard salah, inshallah. I'll wait at the back for any more questions, inshallah. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.